2. Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. My name's Josh. I travel around looking at deals all day long, talking with deal makers. And my goal is to put deals and deal makers together. That's the mission purpose of the show. And I try to bring the best of the best who've done a lot of deals and who brokered things and relationships and kind of share their story, share their journey. And as you listeners find people that you want to do deals with, you just reach out to them. All their contact information will be in the show notes below, so you can connect with them directly and do a deal. That's the mission. All right. So on today's show, we have Microacquire. Mr. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Josh, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, dude. So I'm seeing your name, which I don't even know how to pronounce your last name, but I'm seeing your name everywhere with Microacquire.
Gazdecki. I don't blame you. I've gotten Gazdecki. All my friends call me Gaz. I'll make it easy on you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So, man, you guys are really making a splash with Microacquire. What the heck is Microacquire? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So Microacquire is a startup acquisition marketplace. We focus primarily on startups that have some sort of product market fit, generating some form of revenue, and that could range from a couple thousand a month to millions. And we specifically focus on SaaS, e-commerce, and then a number of other kind of niche categories like newsletters, even communities, direct to consumer, some crypto companies, but primarily SaaS. And since we've launched, which was in January of 2020, we've helped facilitate over $1 billion in acquisitions. And I should note that's 0 commissions as well. So on Microacquire, if you're a founder and you're looking to sell, we don't charge any commissions. And if you're wondering, and I'm sure Josh, you might already, I hope I'm not skipping or just answering your questions as they come up, but we make money by, we charge buyers for access essentially to the deal flow. And then we let buyers and sellers facilitate the transaction, and we build tools to help them get deals done.
Wow. Yeah, because I was going to ask, I've worked with other groups and I've taken a look at other marketplaces. You got Biz by Sell, you got Empire Flippers, you got all sorts of like business marketplaces, Flippa, Cedo. I've seen some others come and go over the years. But, one of the questions I was going to ask you just beat me to the punch is, what makes you guys different and not charging a commission? That's an interesting business model. So why don't you take us through the journey of like how you started this January 2020, interesting year to start a business, right? Seeing what happened in March and such like that. I would love to hear how you started and why you started and why you chose this business model.
Yeah. What do you want? The 2-minute version or like the 10-minute version?
I would like the 10-minute version.
Okay. So prior to Microacquire, I built and sold 2 different companies of my own. I got super lucky, started a business when I was 21. It was a do-it-yourself mobile app builder. And this was like right when the iPhone came out. So we were like Wix for iPhone apps. Mm-hmm. Then we eventually added Android apps. We almost made a BlackBerry app. Glad we didn't do that. But scaled that business to a little over 10 million in revenue. It was bootstrapped. Just a total right place, right time rocket ship. And I sold that to a private equity firm. And this is kind of like the first part of like where I figured Microacquire could benefit founders. When I sold Bizness Apps, I had maybe 10 friends reach out to me and they're like, how'd you find the buyer? What was due diligence like? How did you land on a valuation? Like all these questions. And it just kind of made me realize, as entrepreneurs, we're taught how to market. We're definitely taught how to fundraise. We're taught, everything about arguably the most important part of the founder's journey, and that's the exit. And so I went off and I started a second business called Altcoin. And what we were trying to do was speed up times on the Ethereum blockchain using what's called a layer 2 sidechain solution. I won't go too into that, but we ended up selling that business to a strategic buyer. And the same questions again, like how did you and that business I ran for maybe 18 months. It was an opportunistic play. And the first business I ran for 8 years. And then I got so like bored after selling the second business. I was looking to acquire a SaaS business. And so I looked around at, some of the spots that you mentioned. I looked up and down. I did some cold reach out myself. And there was just nothing specific to SaaS. And I didn't like working with brokers. I didn't like working with middlemen. I wanted to speak directly to the founder to really understand, why do you want to sell? Is this a good business to potentially buy? And then, kind of what really set me off was because I didn't know about business brokers. I thought it was investment bankers or above. I didn't know there was kind of a lower level. That's probably not the best term for them, but I didn't know there was a profession to sell a smaller business that takes a 15% commission. And so I was like, okay, so we have a very large market here because startups have essentially been democratized. You have people building these amazing bootstrap SaaS companies all over the world, because of the proliferation. That's a big word. But you
That
know what I
is a
mean?
great word.
Proliferation of tools like, Bubble and like Notion, like no code tools where you can easily get started with the MVP. And so, I made this sort of bet like, hey, there's this big market here. There's no consolidated place that streamlines and standardizes acquisitions. The current options aren't the best, and they have huge fees associated to them. And then existing marketplaces were riddled with scams. And so I just read reviews of existing brokerage firms, existing marketplaces, and then I just did the opposite of everything. So everything we do at Microacquire, we put the founder first, where our goal isn't to help buyers get great deals. Like, we want everyone to be happy, but we're not the firm where if you come to us, hey, the price is we have a very complex valuation model, quote unquote. It's 3 to 4 times profit or something like that. It's not that simplistic. So we let founders, list what they believe their company to. We let founders list their company at whatever valuation that they think it should be listed at within reason. We'll kind of give guidance if they're going out at like 20 times revenue or something like that. But long story short, yeah, I just saw a big industry, zero innovation, low MPS, nothing specific to SaaS or just startups in general. And I ran this business for about a year completely free. So there was no charging buyers, there's no commissions. I was doing customer support. Every listing that goes live on Microacquire is vetted. So I would vet the listings, I'd talk to the founders, I'd talk to the buyers. And it was just one of those businesses where I had so much fun because, when an acquisition goes through successfully, it's a big moment for the other person. And so that I feel like I might be kind of ranting at this point, but yeah, I just saw, a huge problem in the market and no one was really addressing it. And it was just so much fun working on the business that, I just thought, let's see if we can really reshape and rethink how acquisitions are done so more founders can, exit their business if they choose.
Super cool. All right. Got tons of questions, but anytime an acronym is thrown out there, a business talk acronym is thrown out there, I got to ask what it is. Low MPS, what does that mean?
Net promoter score. So
Okay,
basically how happy customers are of that business's product or service.
got it. Copy. I sometimes my hearing's not the best. I heard MPS. So NPS, what is it? One more time.
Net promoter score.
Copy. All right. So Andrew, as you sold your, built your first business, ran it for 8 years, sold it, ran a second business, sold it pretty quick, and now you're like, got bored, right? You just had your second exit and you're like, I want to do something. So you started looking at these other places to buy a business and you're like, man, the user experience here, or I'm not getting what I really want. At what point were you like, well, screw it, man, I'll build my own, right? At what point did that happen? And what was that? What did that day look like? Take me back to that day.
I'd have to really think. I'd say it was almost immediate. Um, but just after like a few interactions, it was like, okay, well, this is probably the experience I can expect moving forward. And again, just the quality of the businesses. Because when you work with a broker, what's interesting is you kind of have to do like reverse due diligence because the market is growing. Everything is perfect. Like this is a great business. Here's amazing growth opportunities. So you have to do this reverse due diligence. And I just thought it'd be really interesting where I can just like look at the business and talk with the founder direct without someone in the middle. And that's what I wanted. So I would say it was probably immediate, maybe. So if we had to put a date around it, maybe like November of 2019.
Got it. So, so super cool. So you're like, well, screw it, man. I'll build it myself. And you're like, I ran it for free for the first year. I didn't charge anybody anything, and I was just doing customer service and interactions. Like, what kind of feedback were you getting in the marketplace when you were doing this? Was there any hesitancy, resistance? What did you feel?
Initially, when you're building a marketplace, there's always that chicken and egg problem where you need the buyers and you need the sellers. But it was much easier to seed both sides than I initially had anticipated. Initially we were getting like, let's say 5 deals a week, like maybe like one deal a month. And who knows if that our vetting process usually cuts out, like we only approve about like 10 to 20% of businesses onto Microacquire. And so, it just kind of kept picking up steam, especially amongst the startup community. I think people were just excited for a new option to sell their business aside from the ones that were currently available. So it took off pretty quick. And that definitely meant a lot of time spent on customer support, a lot of time vetting different businesses. And thankfully, I enjoyed it because it's a lot of fun looking at businesses, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate. I got first look. So I was like, oh, this is a really interesting business. I have a few questions. And then we list them. And then, we eventually see them acquired. Um, so yeah, there wasn't like a specific moment, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, man, it does. It does. So as you're looking at these businesses, right? You've already sold, two companies, and now, you're starting another business, but you're getting started and you're looking at all these businesses. What's to stop you from going absolutely nuts and buying every cool business that comes across the plate?
That was actually quasi sort of like the original idea was like, I'm gonna build something for my own deal flow so I
Yeah.
can, have a portfolio of SaaS companies. It's gonna be awesome. But candidly, what happened was it just, and this sounds maybe a little corny or cheesy, but it was just so much fun looking at the businesses and interacting with interesting people like you or just the buyers and getting to know, private equity firms, large and small ones, getting to know corp dev teams, meeting people I would never like ever think to interact with, because they were acquiring companies. And
Yeah.
we had a lot of high quality SaaS companies that were available for acquisitions. And so yeah, that was kind of the original idea for probably I'd say like the first maybe like 6 months. And I did take a look at uh like a couple businesses pretty closely, but then I knew if I bought the business, then it would kind of, one of the biggest pillars that we have at Microacquire in terms of our values is security and trust. And so if we had like some brokerage firms even have this is kind of funny. So there's literally, broker firms that have their own PE shops where they acquire businesses, but their main business is a brokerage firm and they're customers of Microacquire, but also competitors. It's very strange. And I didn't want that sort of what's the word? So a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So everything at Microacquire, we do not have any intention of acquiring. But I do joke around saying if I wasn't running Microacquire, I'd be on Microacquire all day.
Yeah, I love deals. I love looking at deals. I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love hearing the story and the passion behind things. I love seeing the impact that it's having. My fear is that if I ever if we ever work together, I would wind up trying to buy everything because it's so fun. Like business is so fun. Now, if you backtrack, I built my first company, sold it, built another company, sold it, looking for other companies, decided to build another company. If you look back and with this mindset now of like, this is actually my fun, this is my passion, this is my joy, this is what I really like am excited about. Like, would you have done anything different if you could go backwards with what you know now when you were building those first two?
That's a really good question, and I would say no because of altcoin. And a big reason of why I sold altcoin was, frankly, I didn't like the customer that I was serving. Really, I wasn't passionate about the problem, and I think just I'm still an advocate of crypto markets, and I think there's a lot of potential there. But before I started Microacquire, I also did this sort of framework, like what are the things that really bring me energy, and I started with the customer at the top. I'm kind of like a startup nerd. Like I can meet, I don't know, LeBron James and just be like, hey, what's up? But if I meet the CEO of like a big tech company, I'm like, whoa, you build, I don't know, Twitter or something like that. Like that's so cool. So I wanted to work with entrepreneurs, startups. I thought that would be amazing. And unfortunately, discovery was taken with Product Hunt. Investing was taken with AngelList and Republic and a number of other platforms. And there was nothing on the acquisition side. And so another thing I'm always thinking about is, you know, you need to have a unique insight when you're starting a business. And I felt, you know, me being on the other side, as an entrepreneur, this could be a really interesting business. Because yet the flip side, if someone else built this, um, let's just say I was in investment banking for 10 years. I'm like, well, let's just take investment banking online. So I thought, what if I just built like the marketplace where, my both of the businesses I described to you, what would it take for me to list on that marketplace from an entrepreneur's standpoint, not a buyer, not an investment banker?
Mhm.
So I felt, the love for the customer, having unique insights. And then I also liked having a marketplace as well because they're so defensible with network effects. So every person that joins the marketplace or every startup that lists on the marketplace, the more valuable it essentially becomes. So with those three things combined, I was like, this is a great business. Plus, I love running it. So I think I got them all right. I mean, if anything, if I could go back, I'd say maybe I'd skip the second business I described to you and just go straight to this one.
Yeah. Um, I think I think you said something that like really resonated with me. You said I didn't really love the problem I was solving, nor the customer I was serving. Break down the importance of that for a founder of loving the customers you serve, loving the problem that you're serving or solving.
Yeah, well, so it depends on what you're trying to do. So with business apps, if I'm just being honest, I was trying to become a millionaire, so that could be also, fall within the realm of what I would consider like an opportunistic business. It's a great business, but I didn't hop out of bed super excited to make apps for, you know, hair salons and restaurants and schools and stuff. Like they were doing a lot of, positive things for these small businesses, but it wasn't like my, dream job, so to speak. I mean, it was at the time. I had so much fun running that company. But when you love the customer, and I think this is just, you know, even speaking more broadly, when you love the customer, and I'll add in the problem too, just what you do is you you'll outcompete anyone who's competing with you because it's work to them and to you it's fun.
Hmm.
And that's another principle I try to live by is, if you can find something where it feels like, fun to you, but work to someone else, it is so hard to compete against a founder where again, like it's not work. And I also think when you're able to find a business like that, that's a business you can run for a decade. So that's where you can build a massive business because
Yeah.
um it takes time to build a massive business and you'll just burn out if you build like the best CRM for dentists but you hate the dentist. Like a true story is I made a mobile app once. It was going to be like the Uber for laundry, and I made like a prototype and I was like, I hate laundry. Like why do I want
Yeah.
to like start dealing with everyone's else laundry when I hate my like that quote, solve a problem you personally experience. There's a little bit of like additional thought you should put into that,
Yeah.
because if you hate doing laundry, like you don't want to end up doing everybody else's laundry. But I
Right.
truly enjoyed the process of the acquisition, the many different ways. How do we streamline due diligence? How do we standardize simple legal docs like an LOI? Like there's an LOI you can write in 100 different ways. How do we get that to a point where we have a standard industry version across the startup ecosystem? So when I started thinking about all these like big acquisitions have like stages, and each of those stages could be products, I was like, that'd be cool if I had this, that'd be cool if I had this, that'd be cool if I had this. And so I think again, when you have that sort of mindset, and that whether you're an artist, whether you're a painter, whether you're whatever it is, I think I've always been a big believer that whatever you love, you're going to be really good at it because you're going to be naturally drawn towards learning about it, improving it. It's really hard to work out every day if you just hate the workouts that you're doing. Um, Not to say that you shouldn't work out if you hate working out. But just as an analogy, like the people who always are in the top 1%, they absolutely love it what they do, and they'd probably do it for free, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the business that I would absolutely do for free. Thank God people are paying me because my kids love to eat. For some reason, they absolutely love to eat. My little one loves filling up diapers. So those things cost money.
Yeah.
But finding out what you love, the people you love to serve, and problems that you like fixing is kind of like the formula, right? That I'm hearing and feeling.
Yeah. And another thing too is like you hear so much about like founders burning out or founders, creating these jobs that they hate.
Yeah.
And it's true. If you create that CRM for dentists and let's say you raise a bunch of venture capital, you're gonna become like a prisoner to that business because you're beholden to your investors, your customers, your team. But if it doesn't like get you excited every day, that same energy will not only just affect you, but I'm also a big believer in just like team chemistry, culture, positivity. This could be a whole nother podcast. But when you're that enthusiastic about the business, it's contagious and it comes onto your team and it comes onto your investors and it comes onto your customers and everyone involved in the business, the way you market it, the way you treat your customers, the way your team treats your customers. And so I think if you're a founder and you're building a business where again, it's more of an opportunistic play. Like Business Apps is probably a good example. That could have been $1 billion, multi-billion dollar business. Like there was a time when uh, Chow Now was one of our main competitors, and they narrowly focused on one vertical, and we went kind of broad. And I sold early. I got tired, so that's just another reason, find something that like you can really see yourself spending a decade doing. And that's hard to do. So
Yeah.
another piece of advice that my CEO coach gave me after I sold my second business, because this is another funny fact, Josh, but I had so much free time. I was playing Madden so much. I was a top 100 Madden player. I got to number like 99 for like a day because
Yeah.
you gotta play every day to get the rankings up.
Yeah.
My wife was like, Andrew, you got like you can't
You got to go
just
do something, dude.
yeah. So I started advising startups. I talked to my CEO coach, and he just gave me the best advice. He said, hey, listen, like when I started, because he built a business to, let's call it 400 million in recurring revenue, sold it, and now he's a CEO coach, and he wanted to just
Yeah.
go or whatever. And he just gave me the best advice. It was like, just be a slow moving river. Just kind of take your time, like let something come to you. Like don't force it. Don't just say you want to start another business and then just dive right in. Like be a little bit more thoughtful about. And then, I kind of just bumped into this one. I was like, oh, this is actually like a startup and this is kind of work, but it's so much fun. And then, I guess the rest is kind of history from
And the
there.
rest is history. All right. So what's your team? Madden. What was your team?
I would play with the Falcons. I'm always kind of a cheap player, so I would just bomb it to Julio Jones. But this is like Madden 19, right off the Super Bowl with the Pats. So you can't play with and then now my team is the Chiefs. So yes, everyone listening, you can judge me. I like to throw the 7 yard, just straight bombs.
All day long, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what stopped you other than the wife telling you you gotta go get a job? You're driving me nuts, man. You gotta get out of the house. You're not doing the laundry because you hate the laundry, right? You gotta go out there and go crush it. Like, what stopped you from being the number one Madden player of the world?
Candidly, I don't think I could have gotten there if maybe. Well, so I mean, just to kind of reel back, just like a little bit more about just like kind of like who I am. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I was that kid selling baseball cards. I was a kid with an eBay store at age 15. You got to be 18 to be on eBay. But I figured out a way around it. So I always had businesses, and I've always felt very fortunate that I found my passion early, and luckily there's money in it. There's not a lot of money in playing Madden unless you are the number one player.
Yeah.
So part of me was also just kind of like I want to start another business, but I don't know what it is. So I was kind of taking a break because I didn't take a break after my first business. And then I just didn't have any ideas. And then I think I got a little bit frustrated, and that led me to thinking about, why don't I just buy a business? Let's skip
Ah.
the whole idea part. And then maybe actually this is because this is like 2 years ago. So maybe this is kind of another bell that's going off my head where I go, there's gotta be like 100,000 other entrepreneurs out there just like me, where maybe they've had a small liquidity event, maybe they don't want to spend the next 2 years thinking of an idea, finding product market fit, chewing glass. They'd rather just kind of fast forward that and just buy a healthy SaaS business. It's not going to be $1 billion company or a publicly traded company, but you're going to have happy customers. It's going to be a cool product. So I think that also kind of feeling that gave me a little bit of unique insight into the buyer side too of, hey, maybe it's not just private equity firms. And, before, when I used to think about acquisitions, I used to think just Google and Apple, and that was the only people that did acquisitions. And then I started to meet more people that were kind of like me that maybe were looking for a business for $500,000, which is a lot, but maybe a lot cheaper, arguably, and lower risk than starting on your own if you're factoring in your time and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that might have been another little light bulb. Was like, I wanted to start a business, but I didn't have any ideas. And then I just kind of slowly started building Microacquire, and yeah.
Yeah. Was that domain readily available, or did you have to like go through some
Yeah.
huge process and buy it for like thousands of dollars?
Yeah, no, the all the social handles and the domain Microacquire were
So you got that,
what.
scooped that up for 20 bucks, and you rocked and rolled and built it.
Yeah, and then everybody started calling it Macroacquire because we've done some acquisitions that our largest acquisition I believe is like let's just call it like 10 million.
Cool.
And we've done a few so we basically live in the sub 10 million range. We have buyers that can do acquisitions much larger, but you know, the larger the deal gets, the more complex,
Yeah.
you know, then it starts to make sense to hire an investment bank, just because you can actually hire investment bankers inside of Microacquire too if you need one. But I don't know where I was going with that thought, but
The names, that's the handles. You scooped it up. Like, great
oh
name.
yeah, Macroacquire, because I think we did like our first, let's call it like $5 million deal, and someone's like, "That's not micro, that's Macroacquire," and then I bought the domain, so I got that one too. So we might do a rebrand soon.
I think it's super cool, man. It speaks volumes to like the mission that you're on, and um, I want to know like when you were frustrated. You're like, I got frustrated and I couldn't figure it out, right? And because you said, built it, sold it, frustrated, you know. At what point did you hire the coach to kind of walk you through the journey?
Oh, my CEO coach.
Yeah.
Oh, so he was my CEO coach for my first business and my second business. I met
Ah.
him through a peer CEO group called 10x CEO.
Mhm.
And I was like 24, 25. Like everyone was talking about like vasectomies and stuff. I'm like, because they're like 50, and I'm like, what am I doing here? But I learned like, I always joke to Tim about that. I was like, I remember how old, like I was like the youngest guy there. Like I felt so out of place. But I left that group after about 2 years being in it. But Tim was the moderator, and I was the way it works is you're in a group with about 8 other really high caliber CEOs, like companies that are now public. I was seeing their books when they were private, and so I learned a ton. And Tim ended up leaving 10x CEO, and so when I started my other two businesses, I always kind of brought him along just because he's just a genius, and I love. It's kind of like having like the way I describe it when I have my calls with Tim. I'll tell my wife, I'm like, call with Tim. It's like a CrossFit session. He just grills me, rate the team. How's everybody doing? He's kind of like my accountability buddy, if you will. Because I also don't start businesses with co-founders. I've never started a business with a co-founder. And the
No
reason for
kidding.
that is number one, I move faster generally on my own, and then I like to bring people in when I kind of got the spark going. But 65% of startups fail due to co-founder conflict. So why add that extra percentage of failure onto a business where you already have a 90% chance of failing?
So having Tim as an accountability partner, it's almost like a co-founder without having a co-founder, right? You kind of hacked the system where you're like, I need the benefits of having an accountability, someone to drive me, someone to like work me out like a CrossFit, workout.
But
But
it's even better because you can tell them like, hey, like I'm really because with a team, you never want to show your team that you don't believe. Like you don't believe this is going to work, or like there were some times at Business Apps where I just didn't have confidence in a product release, or I don't know the exact situations off the top of my head, but you can be so brutally honest because he doesn't have, or he or she, whoever your CEO coach, they don't really have a vested, I mean, they want you to succeed, but there's
right.
no financial incentive for them to give you advice that's not what they truly believe. So the way I kind of describe him, he's kind of like, using NFL terms, he's kind of like the left off offensive tackle, where he covers your blind spot. And he's just good at that. Like I'll be like, the business is going great, Tim. Like, doing this. And he's like, well, have you talked to that person? And I'm like, no, he's doing great. He's like, well, why? That's like such a critical part of your, he does stuff like that, that
Yeah.
kind of, so I highly recommend, if you don't have a co-founder, definitely get a CEO coach. It's worth every single penny.
Yeah.
And you just learn. I think, business is one of those things where, it's not a science. There's people who have done and accomplished what you want to accomplish, and you want to surround yourself with those people. And so I try to do that as much as I can.
Yeah. Talking about blind spots, right? I believe it's important for an entrepreneur, a founder, to investor, anybody, right, to know their strengths. Right? What am I baller at? What am I the best in the world, world class? But I think as we get older, as the stakes start going up, we start having employees, we start having investors, we have spouses or kids or whatever, the stakes go up, right? So it's important to know our strengths, but it's also very important to know our blind spots, right?
Oh
A-
yeah.
As you were going through the process of building companies, selling it, building, selling, now helping tons of people sell their company, like thousands. How many companies have you sold so far within Microacquire, by the way?
We sold 91 so far this month.
This month. Wow.
Let's just call like, I don't know when you're gonna publish this, but let's call it like 800.
Okay. So 800, right? So you've helped been a part of a lot of transactions, right? So like in the process, when like have you ever come to a point where you really had to do some major introspection on your blind spots, maybe some gaps that you have in your in your skill sets?
Oh yeah, this is like a contradictory statement, but I'll say it. I'm pretty confident in knowing what I'm not good at, which I'm sure is a very incorrect statement because, but I'm not organized. I don't like meetings. I cannot be in a meeting for more than an hour. I am not good at financial modeling. I'm not good at just general, I'm good at like establishing a great culture. I love marketing. I love product development. But when it comes to kind of, you know, operating, processes and holding people accountable, I'd say that's probably my weakest area. So I always say the CEOs, the purpose of a CEO is to look outward, and the purpose of a COO is to look inward in the business. Like, how can we optimize this? Because
Yeah.
at a certain scale, your business needs an operating system, and what I mean by that is, you need a how do you communicate when does everyone meet up and kind of go over their goals? How do you keep them accountable? What are our Q1 objectives? How are we going to reach them? And I can kind of like put that on a napkin, but the layers below that, I need help with. So the first person I hired full time at Microacquire was my CFO from Business Apps, to come in and be my COO, because he was kind of my number two. He covered he was good at everything I was bad at, and I would say
Yeah.
I'm the reverse for him. I'm sure he would argue with me on that. But yeah, like, it's so important. You need to have kind of a yin to your yang, and like know what you're bad at. And I'd go even one step farther. Is, there's something called your zone of genius and your zone of
Yeah.
competence, where you want to work in your zone of genius all the time. What that means is, your zone of genius is basically, when you're working in a state that brings you energy. Like, I love doing podcasts. I don't know, posting stuff on social media. I love, thinking of new product ideas, uh, generally marketing the business, being, the biggest cheerleader for my team in the company. And so that's what brings me energy, just being with my team, talking with my team, helping my team, coaching my team to be leaders for their, reports. So that's what brings me energy. But there's all this other stuff in the business that you need to do to keep it running, and that would be your zone of competence. So I'm also pretty good at sales. I'm good at putting together teams, and I can hold people accountable. I can, you know set up, an operating system within the business, but it's not what I enjoy doing. Like, I just put out a tweet like just now, because I was talking with my COO, who's out today just because he's not feeling good. But I just said, like, hey, I just appreciate you, man. I feel like I create all this like chaos and you organize it
Yeah.
within the business.
Yeah.
um but that's something as a founder you want to figure out. And the best way to kind of figure out what your zone of genius is, this is a tip from Justin Kahn, who co-founded Twitch. He basically just said, look at your calendar, print it out, circle everything that gave you energy in green and everything that didn't give you energy in red, and then just stop doing the stuff in red or delegate it. Ideally delegate it because it probably still needs to get done, and do that for a couple of weeks. And like and that's also how you really can go long with businesses. If you need to establish almost like an operating system or a work cadence for yourself that you enjoy, because if you constantly are waking up doing stuff that you don't like, you're just going to burn out and quit, or just need vacations all the time.
Yeah. So good, man. I love that. That's a great, great piece of advice, Mr. Khan. Great job. I'm going to do that. I love that, man. I wrote that down. Thank you for sharing that. All right, off topic. Ready? Behind you, there's a right-handed boxing glove, at least the way I see it. Whose
Yep.
is that?
Take a guess.
Holyfield. Close?
Very close.
Okay.
Almost too close.
Okay. So if it's not Holyfield, it's Mayweather.
No, Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson. You got Mike Tyson's glove. Did you steal it off his hand?
No, that was a gift from one of my friends. His name's Jerry Hurst. He runs a company called Pipe.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the scenario. Mike Tyson comes in the office. Me, you, and Mike are hanging out, and he's like, "Oh, my glove." Would you go in the ring with Mike Tyson, 3-minute round, for name a price, name a dollar amount, $1,000,000? Would you go three minutes with Tyson?
Yeah, I do it for free. Yeah.
You would go in the ring with Tyson?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Are you
mean, well, I mean, we'd have to break this down. Like how, like, I need to know like how. So I've been such a big Mike Tyson fan for my whole life, back to the point in college when I was on like literally financial aid. I bought the Holyfield Mike Tyson 2 poster to put in my
Yeah.
room, and because it was the biggest pay-per-view fight of that time. Up until that time, I believe Conor McGregor and Mayweather beat those records now. But
Yeah.
I've just always been a Mike Tyson fan because of how dominant he was. Um, Obviously, he's not the best, person to look up to, but I've always been a huge fan of his. But yeah, if I get to hang out with Mike Tyson, if that was like, hey, you get to hang out with Mike Tyson, but it's got to be in the ring, I'd be like, sure. Why don't we get Marshawn Lynch? I'll try to tackle him too. Like, sure, whatever.
So, oh, all right. So this is so good. Do you even know how to box?
I don't box, but I mean, I know enough to probably get knocked out by Mike Tyson.
All right. How tall are you and how much do you weigh?
5'10". I weigh about 175.
Oh my gosh, he's one. All right, I'll go ringside with you. I'll be your coach. And I don't know a damn thing about boxing except that I did it one time for a charity event and I got my face smashed in. But if I get set that up, we'll do that together. All right,
I mean,
Tyson, we're coming for you, buddy.
it would be 30 seconds. I would take one punch and I'd be like, can we hang out now? Can we just be friends? Like,
He still got it.
yeah.
So good, man. Awesome. All right, so we go into a boxing match. Sorry, you get knocked out. I'm a bad coach. You get knocked out. You wake up. We go get to hang out with Mike Tyson. What are we going to do for the rest of the day? We get to bring one other person and we get to go to dinner together. So we got me, you, Mike Tyson. Name one other person that you want to hang out with. Holyfield? Should we put them at the same table together?
No, Marshawn Lynch. I actually have an article I've written about Marshawn Lynch in terms of what I admired most about, and this is kind of a weird answer, like why Marshawn Lynch. I loved how he always, and this is actually part of our company's values at Microacquire, is we're all about that action boss, is one of his favorite, like his famous quotes. What I liked about him, like he was an amazing running back, but he didn't really talk too much. He just proved. So I'm a big believer that in business, execution is everything. You can have the best idea, you can talk all you want, but what really separates, the people that really do big things in life is they execute. And I really respected how Marshawn Lynch, number one, he was just hilarious. And just very dominant at his position. And he just didn't talk a lot. He just showed up. And there's some other parts, other good quotes. He was a great teammate. He would say stuff like, there's a good quote like, Marshawn Lynch, like, we're excited to see. He's like, yeah, but like, I got a great team behind me. That's like why we're so good. So it kind of emphasizes, and I don't want to exclude the other greats like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan. I'm a huge sports fan. I believe business is a sport. But I feel like those are the answers that everybody
Yeah,
gives.
but
So
Jordan and Brady, they're just not invited to our dinners. Me, you, Marshawn, and Tyson. Like if we're gonna do it, that's
I mean,
that's
I'm
that's the
I'm
crew.
also I'm also factoring in fun. I think that would be a really fun, because I'm from the Bay Area, so you know, um, big fan of E40 and Too Short and Marshawn Lynch from Oakland.
Yeah.
So I think I tell my friend, I was like, I bet me and Marshawn Lynch would be friends if we hung out.
Yeah. Well, he listens to this. Maybe, probably not. But if he did, we there's an open invitation for a boxing match and for dinner. I'll pay for it. All right, it's on me. I would love to see this happen.
All right.
So, Andrew, as you're building this, man, built a company, sold it. Are you allowed to disclose like how you did on the exits?
Yeah, shoot me with one.
Okay. So whatever one you feel more comfortable talking about, you built and sold two companies prior to starting this. Give us an idea of the size and magnitude of what you built and sold.
Yeah. So first business, I've actually never told anyone the exact amount because it's kind of like a weird flex. Like it's not like big enough or small enough. But what I will say is, let's just go low eight figures. But what was awesome about that deal, it was a stock deal. We benefited from QSBS, and then one term that I negotiated in was to buy the cash. So my first business, Business Apps, had $2 million cash on hand, and they just put a 1x multiple on it. And now that was extremely helpful for tax purposes because typically when you sell a business, whatever cash is in is dividended out to shareholders. So we just put that on top of the purchase price and we had just amazing terms. And then I negotiated. I was out of the business within 90 days because I was already actively building my second business.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, any questions on that one?
No, man. This might be another conversation in the future. Is terms of acquisitions, terms of sale, like the what are some good things and bad things. But before we get too deep in those weeds, because I think that could almost be a separate interview, like what terms to look for when selling your business. Give us this. What is one term that you saw in any contracts that you've done over 800 acquisitions? What is a term that you've seen in a purchase agreement or an LOI or a contract that you're like, red flag, entrepreneur, don't do it? What's one thing that you're like, you got to look out for this?
Uh, like 100% seller financing is comes to mind. Like
You could buy
I
a
just
business with no money down.
yeah. Yeah, but like the for people that don't understand these terms, so if you're running a startup right now, call up your accountant immediately and ask about QSBS, and it stands for Qualified Small Business Stock,
Yeah.
I believe. And what it means is you can sell a business if it's a stock transaction rather than asset purchase. So if I had sold the business as an asset transaction, you'd be taxed around 40 to 50% as regular income. But when you sell stock, you're taxed at long-term capital gains. And if you qualify for QSBS, you pay no taxes, and I could be getting my numbers wrong here, but you pay no tax on up to the first 10 million, which can save you 2 million in taxes. So let's just, for a theoretical sake, let's say you're selling a business for $10 million. One is, a QSBS qualified acquisition. and you're selling a second business for $8 million, and it's an asset sale. So the $8 million business, you're going to walk away with around $4 million and change. Then you got state tax too. So that's around 13% or whatever state you live in. And then on the $10 million deal with QSBS, you're paying 20% federal, 0% federal and 13% state. So you'd walk with seven, eight. I'm bad with math, but you walk.
Yeah.
I should have flipped it. I should have said like 10 million asset sale. But anyways, if you can qualify your business for QSBS, and the reason I say call now is you have to hold the stock for 5 years, and there's certain terms, but it can save you potentially $2 million on taxes if you sell your business.
And that's a good chunk of change. Even with inflation, that's still a lot of money. You know,
it's a whole, yeah. I mean,
it buys you a couple gallons of diesel gasoline. You know, like that. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, maybe, you know, you can get your injuries repaired by Mike Tyson too, you know.
Yeah, get your face put back together and then go have dinner with. You have to drink it through a straw. But Andrew, this is a lot of fun, man. Let's do this. I got a few more questions for people who want to connect with you, do a deal, buy some businesses, maybe even sell a business. Where can people go to connect with you and do a deal?
Just go to microacquire.com or follow me on Twitter, add me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on both those platforms. Or just shoot me an email, andrew@microacquire.com.
Cool. Are there any questions that I should have asked you that I completely screwed up and did not ask you?
Maybe how to pronounce my last name before we started.
I should probably
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
What I actually do is when people will ask me how to pronounce my last name before I go on a podcast, I won't tell you. I'll say, no, you gotta say it live just to see.
Gazdecki.
Yeah, Gazdecki.
Yeah, not Gazdecki, not Gaz, whatever the other ones you told me. I paid attention. I listened.
Yeah, I know. The worst was in elementary school when my name would cut off, so it'd be Andre, like without the W, because my name's Andrew. So because my last name's so long and on the name chart, so I'd get a double whammy. Like, is Andre, like, this was always substitute teachers, but anyways. We'll talk about that on another podcast.
Well, Andre Gazdecki, please. Yeah. Awesome. So once again, fellow deal makers listening into this podcast interview, always reach out to our guests. Say thank you for being on the show, sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences here on the show. If you have a business that you want to look at selling or looking to buy a business, head on over to Microacquire, connect with our friends over there and tell them you heard them on the Deal Scout. And if you're working on a deal or looking for a deal, want to talk about it here on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you guys.